This video is a Larry Under Pressure production.
Welcome to the channel. It's a really cold, blustery, windy day outside up here on the mountain. And on a day like this, one of my favorite things is a slow-cooked pork loin with potatoes and green beans. And they had these, I get these all the time. It's probably the best value in meat available. This pork loin and the whole loin, you can see I cut part of it off. I'll use this part that I cut off later for pork chops. I'll cut it into about 3 or 4 pork chops, boneless pork chops, and this part we'll use as the roast. But this whole thing cost like $7.12. So I'm going to cut some of the fat off of it. I'm not going to cut it all off because some of the fat leaves some good flavor, but then some of it's a little too much and leaves it kind of fatty when you go to cut it and fix the meat. So I'm going to cut part of it off just like that and cut this little pocket off the side because it'll be tough. And we've got that prepared. So the next thing we're going to do is jazz it up with some spices. Let's spice this thing up. The first thing I like to do, and I always do this either with a fork or a knife, is poke quite a few holes in it. That solves 2 things. The first thing it does is it cuts some of the muscle and makes it a little more tender, and we'll do this on the other side too. And the second thing it does is it leaves openings for some of the spices that we're going to put on to get down more into the meat than just on the surface. We're going to pour some olive oil as a binder on this side of the roast and on the ends. And then we're going to take this mixture that I've made, and it's real easy. All that's in it is a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of thyme, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, just a sprinkle of cayenne pepper, and some coarse ground salt and pepper. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that on here like that. About half of it, because we'll use the other half on the other side. And then we're going to spread that around in that oil that we put on. They want a big piece of it. In this I said garlic powder. I actually used granulated garlic that it was already cut and in an oil base. I like it that way. It gives it more flavor and it's a lot easier than trying to cut it up yourself. Okay, let's do the same thing with the other side. First of all, we're going to poke holes in it for the reason I told you on the other side. And if you don't do this, if you'll start doing it, you'll be glad, I promise you. We're going to pour the olive oil on, spread that around, and we're going to put the last of our seasoning. And if you missed what goes in the seasonings, it's no problem. The recipe will be printed in the information below this video, and so you can highlight it and print it out and have it for your records or to put in your recipe box or folder. And you'll have the recipe for this from now on, and you can just whip it up anytime you want to. Okay, we have that all seasoned and ready to go. So the next thing we're going to do is sear this, and we'll be right back and do that. For this recipe, what we're using is the Instant Pot cast iron enameled Dutch oven. This is a great cooking device, and it sears, sautés, slow cooks like a crock pot, braises, gives you the ability to set your own temperatures to cook like a stovetop. And the really nice thing about it is this cooking, the whole pot itself will come right out of the base, and you can actually use this pot on the stove or in the oven. So it really makes a great and very versatile appliance. And it's inexpensive. This whole appliance, including the base, the pot, and everything, is actually less money than what you'd normally spend for just the pot. So enough about that. There's a link in the information below for you to purchase one of these. We have a purchase link for Amazon, and they usually run anywhere from $80 to $100. So you'll enjoy it if you buy it. So what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to go to Sear Saute, and we're going to start that. Now it started the warm up on the Sear Saute, and this pot is extremely heavy, so it takes a little bit to warm up, but then it keeps warming. Then I'm going to pour some olive oil in, and probably about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil in there. And we're going to wait for it to heat up and get good and hot, and then we'll start with the browning of the roast. The pot still shows that it's preheating, but it's been heating now for about 5 minutes, so I think it's enough to go ahead and start this. We're going to put this in. Yeah, there's the sizzle. And see if we can get it browned on both sides and prepare it for cooking. You can use a crock pot for this recipe. That's really what it was written for. And you can do your browning on the stove in a frying pan or however you want to do it. But this is a very versatile recipe, and I just like using this pot because you can brown and slow cook in the same pot without having to dirty up more things and without having to move things all around. So I'll show you how we're going to do it in just a minute. We're going to go ahead and let that brown for just a minute, and then we'll flip it over. With the garlic and the thyme and the other things we put in this, it sure does smell good while it's heating. Let's flip it over. Look how nice and brown that is. Looks good. Also, I don't know if I mentioned that I also put a sprinkle of cayenne pepper in that seasoning blend to make it just give it a little bit more kick. We'll come back when this side's browned. Both sides of that are nicely browned now. I've browned it on both sides, each side for about 4 to 5 minutes. I could do it on the ends, but I'm not going to do that. So let's get it out of there and move on with our next phase. Let's put the roast back on the cutting board to get it out of the way. We'll let it sit there for a minute, and then we're going to fix what we're going to cook it in the pot. Let's make our sauce. We should be starting with 1 stick of butter, and unfortunately I'm out of butter. I didn't know I was, so what I'm going to use is country crock butter, and it won't be as good, but it'll be okay. It'll work. So let me put in about as much as you get in a stick. And that'll do it. We're still on sear saute, and we're going to deglaze the pot with the melted butter so that none of the pieces of the meat are still in there. Also, a lot of the good tasting herbs that we put on that meat when we basted it will be down in there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put honey, and we're going to put, I'm not going to measure it out, but probably 4 to 5 tablespoons, but a good bit of honey. Get it? Bit of honey. Do you remember those? Used to love bit of honeys. Let's get that in there. That's probably about 4 to 5 tablespoons, if not maybe a little more, of honey. And lastly, we're going to put some more minced garlic in there. I'm just using minced garlic from the store. It's a lot easier than trying to mince it yourself. So now we have the butter, the minced garlic, and the honey in here. Well, the pot did turn off. Let's put it back on sear saute and start and get it up to where it's boiling. So we'll get a good nice finish on our sauce. And then we'll move on to getting the meat back in here. You can see now we've got a little boil going on over here. And it's looking good with the butter, honey, and garlic. Smells amazing too. And that's come to a little boil. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the roast in there, and we're going to turn it over so that both sides are exposed to the butter. Trying to see if I can do it without sloshing it. Now the fat side is up, and that's the way we want it. Looks good, doesn't it? Next thing we're going to do is put the lid on and set the pot up for the cook. I've got the lid on the pot, and now we're going to press slow cook, and it defaulted to 6 hours, which is what we want. And we're going to press the start, and it's showing right now that it's slow cooking for 6 hours, and we'll check back on it in maybe an hour or two and give you an update to let you know where we are with it. In the meantime, we're going to let it sit here and cook. This has been cooking for about an hour and a half now, so let's take a look at it and see how it's going. It's looking very good. You can see it's just at a real slow boil. The pot's doing its job as a slow cooker. I'm going to turn it over so we can cook the other side as well. It's not something you have to do, just something I like to do when I'm cooking with a slow cooker. Also, this cooker is really cool. The inside of the lid has little reverse divots that cause the condensation that accumulates on the top of the lid to drip down and continually baste the roast. It's real innovative thinking. And another thing that makes this pot one of my favorite go-to pots that I like using when I'm cooking. We'll come back in a while and check on it one more time. This delicious pork roast has been cooking now for about 4.5 hours, and it looks like it's done. Let's check the temperature. I'm sure that it's going to be fine, but it needs to have an internal temperature of at least 145 degrees according to the Food and Drug Administration. This should be well beyond that. Yeah, 190. It's perfectly done. It's actually done a little bit more than it has to be. And it's still got a little bit of boil going on there. So what I'm going to do is we're going to fix some gravy. And gravy is a real easy thing to do with this kind of roast. First of all, let's turn this back over so we get the other side. Look how it falls apart. It's really unbelievable. There we go. Got it turned over. Now we're going to take it out of the pot and put it over here on the cutting board, and we're going to tint it with aluminum foil. Let's tint this roast so it can sit here and rest and won't dry out. Doesn't have to be real tight, just make sure you get a good cover so as the moisture comes out of it, it condenses and goes back into the roast. let's make a gravy out of the wonderful pan drippings and juices we have still in the pot. We've set the pot on sear saute, and we're going to wait till it comes to a slow boil, and then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of cornstarch mixed with 3 tablespoons of water in a cornstarch slurry. Right now what I'm doing is deglazing the pot in case there's anything left on the bottom of the pot. I don't think there is. Now this that's in there is the drippings plus the butter plus the honey plus the garlic that we put in there to begin with, that's been cooking for several hours, and it smells good, looks really good. I think it's going to make an amazing gravy. And we'll wait for just a minute until that starts a slow boil, then we'll add the cornstarch slurry and make it a thick gravy. There we go, now it's boiling, and you can really begin to see now the advantages of using a cooking device that has so many different functions like this one does. It's really good. It beats the heck out of a slow cooker or a crock pot because of all it'll do. Let's pour this in here and see if it's enough to get it as thick as we want it. Oh yeah, it's gotten real nice and thick. It's almost a perfect viscosity. You can see as I draw the spoon across. Really nice gravy. Now what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to let this sit in the pot. I'm going to put it to keep warm, and that's another function that this pot has. And I'm going to let it sit here for about 20 minutes while that roast rests, and then we're going to slice up the roast and pour some gravy over it. And I'll show you what I'm doing. The roast is cooked, the roast is rested. Now we're going to cut it and see how it looks. It cuts easy enough. Oh, look at that. What beautiful meat. It just looks great. Now I'm going to add some potatoes to the plate, and we'll put some gravy on it. Doesn't that look delicious? There's our roast, our pork roast, and our potatoes. And I've got the gravy that you saw me make. And I'm going to put some gravy on this dish. Nice brown gravy with lots of herbs in it and a wonderful taste. Look at that. Couldn't be much prettier. Alright, it's been a pleasure to fix this for you. Hope you've enjoyed watching it, and if you have and you've gotten some value out of it, I encourage you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot, and it'll also help you by notifying you every time I upload a new dish. And we do a lot of them. I'm just about to hit 1,000, and that's an a benchmark that I've had in mind for a long time. So I'd appreciate your help with that. Again, thank you for joining us. If you're looking to purchase one of the Instant Pot Dutch ovens, there's an Amazon purchase link below that you can purchase it for the same price as if you bought it right from Amazon and not through my link. And it'll help me a little bit too. Enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the remarks and the comments, and we'll see you on the next cook.
As always, we really appreciate having you join us for our video. This is a particularly good, easy recipe we know you'll enjoy. If you are not already a subscriber, please click on the red box at the bottom right of your screen or in the links below this video in the information area. In that same area, you will find a printed recipe as well as Amazon purchase links for items Larry uses in these videos. We wish you happy cooking. Take care.